Dawn on the Nile. The air is cool, smelling of wet silt and barley. Here, life is measured by the river, and wealth is counted in baskets of grain. This surplus was more than food. It was the foundation of society itself, building hierarchies, funding temples, and demanding the first written ledgers to track it all. This same story unfolds across the ancient world. By the Euphrates, a scribe presses a reed into damp clay, capturing debts and laws in cuneiform. In the Indus Valley, meticulously planned streets reveal a society built on order. Along the Yellow River, legends of flood control echo the rise of centralized power. From scattered settlements, the first great states emerged, stitched together by the earliest threads of trade. But how do you rule millions? The answer was written in stone and stamped in silver. Along Persian royal roads, messengers carried decrees across a vast domain. In bustling Greek ports, a shared currency turned olives into amphorae and amphorae into empire. And in Rome, the warm wax of a senator's seal was a tangible symbol of power, felt from a dusty toll gate to the farthest provincial capital. Roads, laws, and a common coinage were the sinews that bound these sprawling empires together. In the East, empires were built not just on roads, but on powerful ideas. In the Indian subcontinent, Mauryan rulers pioneered a bureaucracy that reached every village well, while the later Gupta courts patronized astronomers who mapped the heavens. Hinduism provided a cosmic order, binding households to kings through duty and ritual. Farther east, in China, Han scholars refined governance with Confucian ethics, creating a class of officials trained in classical texts. And carried along trade routes by monks and merchants, a new idea began to spread: Buddhism, translating compassion into new languages, new art, and a new vision of existence. These beliefs shaped law, sanctified power, and set the rhythms of daily life for millions. Westward, along the same arteries that carried silk and spices, new faiths were shaping the world. In the flickering lamplight of a desert caravanserai, travelers traded not just goods, but news and beliefs. Judaism maintained its covenant through law and memory. Christianity spread its message of salvation through letters and icons. And later, Islam would integrate scripture with law and learning, creating a vibrant civilization that stretched for thousands of miles. The Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean sea lanes, the trans-Saharan camel trains, these were more than trade routes. They were a single, sprawling conversation, where goods, ideas, melodies, and faith moved as one. And then the pace of that conversation quickened. In a quiet workshop, a new invention, paper, made knowledge lighter and faster. A magnetic compass, trembling in a mariner's hand, pointed the way to bolder journeys. But these new connections carried peril as well as promise. A plague, born in the East, traveled the familiar trade routes, and the toll of a funeral bell became the sound of an age. The Black Death remade the world, altering the value of labor and shaking the foundations of the leaf. The winds of change were gathering force, turning from the desert caravan trails toward the vast open sea. Dawn in Seville, the air is thick with tar and salt. A new kind of ship is ready to sail, not just across a sea, but into a new era. These voyages would stitch the spheres together, sparking the Columbian Exchange, a vast transfer of crops, animals, and diseases that would reshape the planet's biology. But it also unleashed the horrors of the Atlantic slave trade, chaining millions in a system of unimaginable cruelty. As fortunes were made and empires grew, new ideas took root. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment questioned the nature of power and the rights of man. These questions, once whispered, became revolutionary shouts. In the American colonies, in the streets of Paris, and in the slave fields of Haiti. What happens when promises of liberty meet the whip? The answer was steam and steel. The Industrial Revolution pulled humanity into factories, remade the family, and fueled a new wave of empire. answered by new forms of resistance. The world was now irrevocably entangled. The lines on imperial maps soon bled into the mud of trenches. The 20th century unleashed the horror of total war, of genocide and atomic fire. From the ashes of old empires, new nations struggled to be born, only to be caught in the chilling standoff of the Cold War. Yet even as the world divided, it also grew closer. Digital networks connected markets and minds in an instant. Interdependence grew, but so did inequality. The planet itself began to show the strain. Today, we live in the aftermath. A pandemic reveals the fragility of our global connections. An algorithm shapes our choices. A debate over our shared climate determines our future. This is the history we have inherited. It is the story that has brought us to this moment. And now, the page is turning once more.